today we had a deload single on deadlift with 650 pounds, 295 kg, which is actually pretty crazy to think about because I was like, to put in perspective, a week one for me previously, with my old style of training, like a wave loading approach, week one would be considered almost like the deload week. If you even would consider it that, it's more considered like a reload week. My week one deadlift, if I were peaking, meaning if I was going to take a single, would be like 550, 585, 600 at absolute most. And even that was a little scary because it would just stack up too much fatigue. It pushed me too hard to the point where I wouldn't be set up for a big pull later on in the block. So to be able to come off such an intense block, hit 650 today as easily as I did, which you'll see in a moment, great sign. Great sign. Now, would it have flown as easily if I had done conventional? Probably not, honestly. But I still think I would have gotten it pretty. I think it still would have been a very efficient pull. I'll put it that way. But yeah, so we're on pace. But let's play this. Bro's oral farming in the beginning here. Had to leave that part in, Anyway, okay. All right. So I haven't messed around with my setup, but I'll talk about that in a second once we see the pool. Come on, let's go, Chubby. Grab the bar. There we go. Nice. Okay, smooth. Good hold. Done. Wait for the belt flick. Don't. Okay. So, a couple things here. Right now, sumo is tricky because there's really, in my opinion, two major styles of pulling sumo, or pushing sumo, I should say. You can either do a wide stance conventional, or you can do a traditional sumo. Most lifters end up somewhere in between. It really is going to depend on your leverages, and truthfully, one of the biggest determining factors is essentially how far your hips are going to have to start away from the bar and how long your arms are. Those two things are the biggest factors in determining which end of the spectrum you're going to lean on in terms of a wide stance conventional or a true sumo. Now, what makes the sumo deadlift a wide stance conventional? Like, what does that even mean? All I'm referring to here is you using more quads. And to use more quads, you have more knee bend, more knee flexion. Okay? So what you're basically saying is that the angle of your shin is forwards here because your knee would be here, ankle is here, and then in order to extend the knee, you use the quad, okay? Whereas if you see sumo pullers who have a they really can crank open their hips, their shins are relatively vertical. Yeah, they're still using their quads, absolutely. But it's nowhere near as much as if they were to, again, try and drive those knees super, super far forward and essentially leg press the weight up, which is still kind of happening with a traditional sumo, but just simply not as much, right? So again, the difference, in my opinion, is think about a conventional. One of the reasons why conventional can be so effective is because your legs are stacked under you. You feel like you have more ability to push through the floor. Your legs are stacked under you. You feel like you can push through the floor. Really use your legs, use your quads. The conventional, if done properly, should not feel like a pull. It should feel like you're standing up out of a chair. It should really feel like a push and a pull together, honestly. If you do it right, your posterior chain and your anterior chain will work in unison. And so as you extend the knees, you'll be extending the hips. Guys who have a very posterior chain dominant conventional deadlift, which is common, I think John Hack would be one of those people. Yes, it's based on levers, but it's also just like their style of pulling. The problem with it is you really are neglecting an entire muscle group. You're not using as much power as you could because you're not using your quads as much. Like, imagine how much you could fucking leg press. So if you can just get into a good start position so that you can maintain everything as you use your legs to the fullest, and that start position mimics what a leg press is, think about how much you could leg press. You could leg press, like a strong athlete can leg press well over 1,000 pounds. So when you think of it from that perspective, now all of a sudden when you transition to a conventional deadlift and you apply those mechanics, you should be able to push a lot more than you can just pull. All right. And the other argument I would use here is if you are a posterior chain dominant puller, you think conventional is more in the hamstring, glutes, and back. Well, then what the fuck is the difference between that and a stiff-legged deadlift? Like, it's a variant for a reason, right? So in order for it to be a variation, it can't be the same fucking thing. So your conventional or competition conventional deadlift, in my opinion, should have some knee flexion because you want to be able to extend the knee. You want to be able to use the quads. So I say all that to say that same thought pattern or thought process rather can be applied to sumo, and we see this a lot, bro. Um, I would actually argue that like if you've ever seen Austin Perkins sumo deadlift, his sumo deadlift is very much like a wide stance conventional. My old sumo deadlift around the time of the first Sheffield was a very wide stance conventional deadlift. Okay. And again, it really can work. It can work. In my opinion, it's not a true sumo, but it really can work. Not always is it if you see someone with a forward shin angle with like a lot of knee bend that it's considered a wide stance conventional because the second layer you have to add is the hips and how close those hips are to the bar. But any athlete who has like a pretty forwards shin angle and, you know, obviously they're using a lot of quads and their hips are pretty far behind, meaning their hips aren't close up against that bar, chances are that's like a wide stance conventional. You know, they're treating the sumo deadlift basically like a wide stance conventional. Okay, enough about that. The traditional sumo is going to be again like you really can open up the hips. I guess the best person or the best people I could point to for a traditional sumo is more like Colton the Limit Breaker or Dan Griggs. Obviously, I think Jamal Browner has kind of like a hybrid, but I definitely do think he leans more towards the traditional side. Like I said, every athlete's going to end up on the spectrum, and 9 times out of 10, what's optimal for you is going to be somewhere in between those two. Um, I don't have the hip mobility to do a true traditional sumo. So, you know, that's why my body kind of like I end up just morphing more towards a wide stance conventional. But a traditional sumo, hypothetically speaking, should be not easier, but simply way more efficient at the top end. That said, you will have less room for error with that technique, okay, with that style. So I've been kind of going back and forth between trying to really emulate like a traditional sumo where my shins are vertical, my feet are angled out, and I'm really just trying to get these hips as close to that bar as possible and stay as upright as possible, and just get as much slack, get as tight as possible, right? I've been trying to do that. Um, but it again, the problem is that my strongest sumo pulls have been with that wide stance conventional where my legs are just a little bit closer, my feet are a little bit straighter because it's just easier for me to press through the floor like a leg press. I'm very extended in the upper back, and again my hips start pretty far from the bar. The bar ends up starting maybe not midfoot but definitely not against the shin. And then, you know, and I'm basically just, instead of thinking about getting my hips super close to the bar, I'm just thinking about driving through the floor with my quads. Um, and yeah, and that's what has worked for me in the past. But, you know, we're always trying to optimize technique. So today is kind of like a hybrid approach of those two things. I should have thrown in videos where I'm kind of doing one versus the other. But today was definitely a hybrid of those two things. Whether or not it's going to stick, you know, I don't know. What I will say though, is grip is another big thing, and this bar is fucking horrendous, dude. There's like no knurling on it, and the paint coating that they put on these power bars kind of makes it that way. But I guess it's good practice because if I can hold on to this bar, then I can hold on to an Alico. Also, too, this bar is definitely stiffer than the new Alico bars. The new Alico bars give deadlifters such an advantage because they're so whippy. You see guys from Worlds with these crazy whippy squats. I think I've talked about this before. They have these crazy whippy squats, and bro, it's like they're all over the fucking place, you know? But then you see these guys deadlifting and you can just see the amount of slack that they can pull. It's fucking ridiculous. But anyway, so my grip here is a fingertip grip. I'm basically creating like a hook with my fingers here. And that's, you know, it's good because it gives me a little bit more leverage, believe it or not. And it's also good because I create a hook here, there's really not too much room for that bar to wiggle and move. The downside is I'm not actually using my forearms to grip the bar. When I hike that bar deep into the palm, the benefit is I can really use my musculature to secure that bar, and it's less likely for things to jostle it out. The problem is because it's so deep in the palm, there's so much more potential and room for that bar to move. And the moment that bar starts to spin in your hands, it will open that bitch up. Doesn't matter how strong your grip is. And usually that will happen when it's a hard lift, you're grinding. And what happens when you grind? You pull that bar into you, and what does it do? There's friction between your thighs and the bar, and so that causes the bar to spin, and that's why you'll lose it. So it's not a grip strength issue. It's a lot of times a position issue. But the last thing I'll say here about the sumo, I think, before moving on, is that position right there scares me a little. Watch, ready? 10 seconds. Hold on, guys. Go ahead. Not a bad start position. I'm not gonna lie to you. Not a bad start position. Almost there. I'm not gonna be able to land it, but it was like right here. It was like right here. My knees are almost fully extended, and yet I'm still over. My shoulders are still forward. That's dangerous because when this weight is super heavy, it's very difficult to grind from that position. Very difficult because I don't have my legs under me anymore. In a perfect world, the sumo deadlift will be treated in terms of like the efficiency of lockout. It should be the same as conventional, where as the knees extend, the hips extend. So do one fluid movement, just straight up. The moment that it becomes a two-part movement, that's an issue, man. Like you're asking for problems in competition. Because again, with 650 or maybe even 705, not a big deal. But once it's 750 or 800, now all of a sudden, your body's like, yo, we can't fight through these positions. We can't just like muscle it in these positions. And so efficiency matters that much more. And that's why people like to say the conventional is a little bit easier to grind through because again, your legs are under you. So you can kind of finish that. Whereas sumo, you don't have as much leverage. As soon as you lose your hips here, as soon as like all this stuff's locked out, like think about it. What muscles are you using to bring that bar from what would be here to here? It's really just like your glutes and just trying to push your hips through or pull that bar back into you. So trade-offs, you know what I mean? But yeah, we'll see if this grip technique holds up. We've got like 3 or 4 weeks of peaking to make it work. Moving on to leg press. I didn't have any back downs today. Today was just the deload single. Again, I'm really happy with how the 650 moved. I think it moved pretty smooth. So yeah, I'm back in my old school Adidas. You probably saw in the previous squat video, I switched to these heels for squats. They actually felt really good, weirdly, on this leg press. And usually heels don't feel good for me on the leg press. I feel like I was able to go a lot deeper with these. Something that's unique about me is I love TYR, right? I love barefoot shoes, all that stuff. But what I found is I don't have a crazy arch in my foot, but I have a decent arch. And what I found is when I squat in the TYR heels, I just don't have any stability really. And I even noticed that when I competed at NAPFs and broke the 900 kilo barrier, like I had to squat 751 back to back, right? And I just noticed like I'm just wobbly, I'm shaky. I just don't feel strong and stable. Stable is the right word. Going into and out of the hole. And I'm telling you, I think it's because there's just no arch support. Those heels are designed for people who want like that barefoot feeling, that wide toe box barefoot feeling, which is great. The problem is like either A, if you haven't built up your stability, without using arch support, or B, if you have arch, a high arch in your foot, then not having that arch support means less stability because you're lacking arch support, right? And in these, sometimes I feel a little less stable, but way more stable than I do in barefoot shoes, which is just really interesting. I don't know, just food for thought because everybody's been gravitating towards the wide toe box barefoot heel lately. And the one thing I will say though is the Notorious Lift Ronins, which I squatted a lot in, I felt more stable in than I did in the TYRs. And I think it's because I found the Ronins to be a nice combination of not necessarily giving me like a barefoot feel, but still being like a wide toe box kind of. So I felt like they were a nice hybrid. I don't think they had any like significant arch support per se, but they were very comfortable, very sturdy, very strong. So maybe I'd go back to those, but these shoes are tried, true, and tested. I think the heaviest squats I've taken in this are pretty sure I did like a 719 double in these, and then uh, I've competed in them twice. I think I took 760 a couple times in these as well. The fuck else have I done with these? Yeah, so I know I can squat heavy in them. It's just a matter of like maintaining good position in them. You know what I mean? But I'm convinced I can squat heavy, and we can all squat heavy in pretty much anything. Um, so yeah, so what I'm focusing on during this leg press, see, like look how deep I can get. Whereas if I wear flats on this leg press, I cannot get that deep, bro. Like that's squat depth. When I wear flats, dude, my knee stops like here. It's crazy. Um, so what I'm focusing on here, it is a deload week. I did not want to throw on tons of plates. I also did not want to have to use my knee sleeves. When I'm in prep, I will use knee sleeves on major lower compound movements like a hack squat, a belt squat, a leg press. Um, During a deload week, I try to avoid that. What I'm focusing on here is my hips. Um, I'm trying to twist the quads away from each other and like open the taint, like open up at the groin the entire time and hold that the entire time. You can already see like my hips want to fight and turn back in, but that's basically what I was focused on the whole time. And obviously breathing, bracing, keeping some extension in here. Uh, so yeah, the first set I did 4 plates on each side for like 12. Wasn't too crazy. And then this set I did like a nice hard set of 10. It was supposed to be 3 RIR. I probably could have banged out another 3, 5, 10 if I had a gun to my head. But it felt challenging enough, especially for, a deload week. So, and unfortunately, guys, this is the last exercise I have that I filmed because, again, my DJI, the SD card situation, I can't believe it, man. It's just like, bro, literally the moment I come back to YouTube, it does this. It's never done this. It's whatever. I had like a whole intro. I had a whole intro sequence I didn't record. I did. It's annoying because it's like as prepared as you are, shit like this will still happen. And that becomes very frustrating because it's hard work to be prepared all the time. Okay, so here we've got these leg extensions. This machine is absolutely atrocious. You can tell I'm not really getting much range of motion because I can't bring this up higher, and I'm a short fella. I can't like really get the extension all the way up because it literally just like was kind of pushing into the front of my shoe. So it is what it is. So I stacked out the thing. I think 200 pounds is the heaviest I went up to, and I basically was trying to be as controlled as possible. A lot of times with leg extensions, hamstring curls, I like the weight to come to a dead stop as opposed to using my own musculature or really what ends up being like my tendons to slow the weight down and then restart it. I just find it's healthier. It also, in a lot of ways, can make it harder without the feeling that my knees are going to fall off. So that's why I do that. But yeah, a lot of it, again, just breathing, bracing, really just trying to focus on the contraction. And that's basically it. So yeah, I mean that's basically the video, guys. I appreciate you guys tuning in. We have a well, you know what? I'm gonna save the training app updates for a little bit later. But if you guys are looking for coaching, um, we're more than happy to take on new clients. As of right now, I have a powerlifting specialist under me. I still coach as well, and then I also have high rocks and body recomp specialist as well. So, yeah, we're building out a team. Very excited about it. But yeah, man, I mean, overall, I'm pretty excited about what's coming later in the month. I mean, I haven't gotten my new program yet for the peak, but already I'm feeling the benefits of not having to do all the fucking volume I was doing before. So I'm really excited to see how things shape up. I mean, really, I think technique goes a long way here, and I'm really hoping I can pull it together with sumo, especially. I have conventional in my back pocket, and squats this week. I was pretty happy about bench. We had a really easy 190 kilo single. So if you want to see that, just go on my Instagram. But yeah, man, I'm really excited about it, and I think like I guess there's a good place to end in terms of like a mindset thing. Nothing changes if nothing changes. You have to be, there's a balance as an athlete because if you hyper obsess about the process, about your performance, um, it can create a negative feedback loop because you'll always find something to work on. That's nature. You're human. You are born to be imperfect. That's literally it. So you'll always find something. So what happens is that then fuels this, again, this negativity, this idea of like, oh, I still wasn't good enough. This still didn't move the way I wanted it to, or my technique this and this, that, 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 that. The other side, though, is as an athlete, your job is just to show up, have fun, be present, focus, and execute. Okay. My younger brother Logan went to a lacrosse showcase in Delaware the other day. And I texted him, and basically all I said was be present, focus, have fun. The rest will take care of itself. And that's true. Honestly, that is true. You will enter a flow state, you will apply yourself, and if you have a passion for this and you are allowing yourself to just simply be free and have fun, you're going to give 110% no matter what. Except the difference is now you have the freedom to fail, which really is 90% of the battle when it comes to unlocking performance. So, the point that I'm trying to make is on the other end of the spectrum of being a hyper obsessed individual, you cannot give a fuck. You can be like, listen, man, I'm just going to go in, look at what's on my sheet, focus, have fun, vibe, and then call it a day. I don't think that that's great either, especially in this sport, because it is a mano a mano sport. Like at the end of the day, only you can step on that platform. Only you are responsible for the standards at which you lift, for how things go, for your feedback, all of that stuff. So if you never give your coach or even give yourself like honest feedback about what's going on, what's going right, what's going wrong, even if it's just nothing's going right or wrong, just this is what I'm experiencing, and not attaching any sort of negative or positive quality to that. If you never do that, nothing will become individualized. Nothing will evolve based on or change based on your experience, right? Which is a very critical component or aspect of programming, of training, and of coaching. So you kind of want to find the middle, you know what I mean? So as I go through this stuff, like again, nothing changes if nothing changes. Like I'm always going to be thinking like, fuck, okay, that's got to change. I gotta figure out what I'm going to do there. But I'm also in the back of my mind thinking like, I'm going to do what I can, but then that's it, bro. I'm applying myself 100%, but that's it. That's it. There is a balance. People think balance is a distraction. Balance is not a distraction. Balance is discipline. The best athletes have balance. There is no way you could train 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for your whole life. You can't do it. Guarantee you can't even make it more than a week doing that. You can't. You die of sleep deprivation. Balance. Train hard, recover hard, right? Have fun, but also be serious. Balance. Darkness is nothing but the absence of light. There's a symbiotic nature to these things. Okay, so yes, I'm analyzing what's going on. Yes, I care a lot about my performance in a month, but I also understand that at the end of the day, I'm just lifting weights. It's squat, bench, and deadlift, bro. It ain't that fucking deep. So just go in when you train and when you review your stuff, going with an analytical mindset, but also give yourself some grace, and recognize that you're here to have fun. Also, too, I'm going to be recording another video on a question that one of my athletes had asked me that I thought was really, really good. Basically about, he's got a meet coming up and he wants to know what he should be doing differently. Should he be communicating differently? Should he be training differently? Eating differently? Is there anything that he should be doing now that he's got a meet coming up? And I took some time to answer that as thoroughly as I could. And I was like, you know what? I bet you there's a lot of people who could benefit from this because it goes way beyond a powerlifting meet. I mean, what I told him is essentially what I would tell myself if I booked a new role, if I had a public speaking engagement, if I was going to take, a class or, going to a school, like a law school or something like that, like whatever the pursuit is, this is exactly what I would tell myself if I were to embark on that, so any sort of high pressure situation or a situation where you need to perform, and you want to perform. So be on the lookout for that video. Let me know in the comments if you like this stuff. I promise you in the future we'll have like more higher quality videos and like more in-depth shit. But for now, yeah, this is it. But I'm just happy that we're consistent, bro. This will be video 2 this week. So, all right, guys. Catch you later. Peace.